The massive Volridian warship hovered above New York City, casting mile-long shadows across the skyscrapers as Ambassador Krell strode into the United Nations, with his 12-foot crystalline form glittering under Earth's sunlight. Dr. Eliza Chen, Earth's chief diplomat, extended her hand in greeting only to have Krell scan her with multifaceted eyes and declare to his entourage, "Such soft creatures with brittle bones. How have they survived this long?" The Galactic Confederation delegation snickered, their translator devices making no attempt to soften the insult. Security personnel tensed, but Dr. Chen remained perfectly composed, her smile never faltering. "Perhaps there are different kinds of strength, Ambassador," she replied, her voice calm but carrying throughout the suddenly silent chamber. Behind her, General Marcus Wei shifted his weight, a hand drifting toward his sidearm before Dr. Chen subtly gestured for him to stand down. This wasn't the time for displays of human aggression that would only confirm the aliens' preconceptions. Ambassador Krell's crystalline body refracted the overhead lights as he moved toward the central podium. The 4 other alien representatives followed, each more bizarre than the last. The serpentine Naga ambassador slithered alongside the hovering orb that contained the gaseous Vaporean diplomat. Behind them, the chitinous Drozari military attaché clicked his mandibles impatiently, while the ethereal luminary representative drifted like morning mist. The Galactic Confederation spans 17,000 light-years and includes 243 spacefaring civilizations, Krell announced, his translated voice booming through the assembly hall. "For 50,000 years, we have maintained peace through strength and hierarchy. Each species contributes according to their capabilities and receives protection appropriate to their status." Screens around the hall displayed spectacular images of alien worlds, massive space stations, and technologies that made Earth's most advanced developments look like children's toys. The assembled human dignitaries murmured in awe, but Dr. Chen noted the calculated intimidation in this presentation. "After observing your civilization for the past 30 of your years," Krell continued, "the Confederation has determined that humanity qualifies for protected subsidiary status. Your technological development is promising but limited, and your physical form is—" He paused, multifaceted eyes scanning the room, "unsuited for the harsher realities of galactic civilization." Dr. Chen caught the eye of General Wei in the back of the room. Their contingency plan might be necessary after all. She stepped forward, the subtle nanofabric of her diplomatic suit adjusting to her movements. "Before we accept such a generous offer," she said with practiced diplomacy, "we request the opportunity to demonstrate humanity's unique qualities. Our species has thrived in isolation on a world you yourselves classify as unusually diverse and challenging. Surely that merits more consideration than simple biological assessment." The Drozari military attaché chittered something that the translators didn't catch, but the dismissive tone was unmistakable. Ambassador Krell's crystalline form vibrated slightly, what Dr. Chen was beginning to recognize as their version of laughter. "Your enthusiasm is noted, Dr. Chen," Krell said, "but the Confederation's assessments are not made lightly. Your species possesses minimal natural defenses, requires frequent rest cycles, and can be disabled by minor temperature variations or atmospheric composition changes. Even your planet's microorganisms pose constant threats to your survival." Dr. Chen's smile didn't waver. "And yet, here we stand." Something in her tone caused the luminary representative to drift closer, its misty form condensing slightly as if in curiosity. "The human wishes to prove their worth," the luminary said, its voice like wind through crystal chimes. "There is precedent for this. The centennial trials approach." Ambassador Krell's vibration ceased abruptly. "The trials are for established member species to determine hierarchical standing, not for evaluation of pre-membership civilizations. Yet the founding charter places no such restriction," the luminary countered. "I find myself curious about what these humans believe they might demonstrate." Dr. Chen stepped forward, careful not to appear too eager. We would welcome any opportunity to show the Confederation what humanity is capable of. Perhaps then you might reconsider our classification." Around the chamber, the human delegates held their breath. Everything hinged on this moment, their first and perhaps only chance to secure humanity's place among the stars, as equals rather than pets. Ambassador Krell's crystalline form shifted hues slightly, betraying what might have been irritation. "Very well. The Council will consider your request. We shall reconvene tomorrow with our decision." As the alien delegation departed, General Wei approached Dr. Chen. "That wasn't the plan," he muttered. "We were supposed to demonstrate our military capabilities if they tried to subordinate us." Dr. Chen watched the departing aliens. "Fighting isn't always about weapons, General. Sometimes it's about choosing the right battlefield." The Confederation Council chamber resembled a massive amphitheater carved from a single asteroid, with representatives from 200 species seated according to their power ranking. Earth's delegation sat in the lowest tier, the temporary seating hastily installed just hours before the session. Dr. Chen studied the chamber's architecture, noting how the lighting naturally highlighted the highest tiers where the founding species sat. Everything about the Confederation emphasized hierarchy. Admiral Zax Tull of the militant Prozeri rose from his mid-tier position, chitinous armor gleaming under the artificial light. "The 400th Centennial Trials will commence in 30 days, he announced, mandibles clicking with formal precision. "As tradition dictates, all member species and candidates for membership may participate to establish their rightful place in the Galactic Order." A subtle ripple of excitement passed through the chamber. Dr. Chen leaned toward her assistant, Thomas Okafor. "What exactly are these trials?" she whispered. "Our intelligence is limited," Thomas replied quietly, "but they appear to be a series of competitions testing various capabilities. Physical prowess, technological achievement, cognitive abilities. The Confederation uses the results to determine resource allocation and political influence." Dr. Chen nodded, her mind racing. Before she could fully process the implications, Ambassador Krell's voice boomed across the chamber. "As the humans are merely observers considering protected status, they will naturally be exempt from participation," the Volridian announced with obvious condescension. "Their physiology would make competition unfortunate." Dr. Chen rose without hesitation, drawing surprised glances from both human and alien observers. "Humanity formally requests entry into the trials." The chamber erupted in laughter so thunderous it caused the translator devices to glitch. Ambassador Krell's crystalline form vibrated intensely with amusement. "The gravity alone in most arenas would crush your fragile bones," he said when the commotion subsided. "The trials are not ceremonial, Dr. Chen. Participants have died seeking to rise above their natural station." "Nevertheless," Dr. Chen replied evenly, "Earth wishes to compete, unless there are specific regulations prohibiting our participation." The luminary representative drifted forward, its misty form condensing slightly. "There are no such prohibitions. Any civilization with faster-than-light capability may enter one representative. It has been thus since the founding." Admiral Zax Tull's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Dr. Chen had learned. The human civilization clearly doesn't understand the nature of the trials. Their participation would be wasteful. "Perhaps," the luminary countered, "or perhaps illuminating. I second Earth's petition to compete." Back on Earth, military leaders frantically scrambled to find a suitable candidate. In the Pentagon's secure conference room, holographic profiles of Olympic athletes, special forces operators, and extreme sports champions rotated above the central table. None of them have the necessary combination of physical capability, adaptability, and tactical thinking, General Wei said, frustration evident in his voice. "And none have experience with the enhanced gravity environments we're likely to face." Colonel Ivanova, head of the Specialist Integration Program, cleared her throat. "Sir, there is one possibility we haven't considered." She tapped her tablet, and a new hologram appeared. A man in his early 30s with the physicality of an Olympic decathlete, but with distinctive scarring visible along his neck and forearms. "Commander Soren Takeda," she said, "former Olympic gold medalist whose training facility collapse led to our classified cybernetic enhancement program. He's the only human who successfully integrated the full adaptive system." General Wave frowned. "That program is top secret for a reason, Colonel. The international implications." "With respect, sir," Ivanova interrupted, "we're no longer playing a purely international game. This is about humanity standing among the stars." 3 days later, when footage of Soren's capabilities leaked to the Confederation, courtesy of Earth's newly formed Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs, their mockery turned to confusion. The human moved with unnatural precision, adapting to rapidly changing environmental conditions in ways that seemed impossible for such a frail species. "What are we seeing?" Ambassador Krell demanded during an emergency session of the Confederation's Assessment Committee. "These capabilities were not in our evaluation data." The luminary representative drifted closer to the display showing Soren training in a variable gravity chamber. "Fascinating," it whispered. "They augment themselves. Primitive technological compensation," the Drozari military attaché dismissed. "No match for natural evolutionary advantages." The luminary's form rippled in what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. "We shall see. The trials begin in 27 days. Soren trained inside NASA's variable environment chamber, his body glistening with sweat as engineers made real-time adjustments to his cybernetic interfaces. The chamber shifted from desert heat to Arctic cold in seconds, gravity fluctuating between Earth normal and 3 times that pressure. Neural interface holding steady at 97% synchronization, called Dr. Rashid, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Cardiopulmonary system compensating beautifully. Soren completed another set of adaptive movements, his cybernetically enhanced muscles flowing with unnatural precision. The integration between his natural tissue and the microscopic machines throughout his body had taken years to perfect, but the results were undeniable. "We're not trying to make you stronger than them," Dr. Rashid explained during a brief rest period. "The Volridians can bench press a small car without technology. The Drozari exoskeleton can withstand direct artillery fire. We can't compete on those terms." Soren nodded, taking measured sips from a specially formulated recovery drink. "So instead, we're making me adaptable in ways they can't comprehend." "Exactly," she confirmed. "Their evolutionary adaptations are specialized. Impressive, but fixed. Your systems can reconfigure in real time based on environmental conditions and tactical needs." Through approved observation feeds, Confederation analysts watched these training sessions, completely misinterpreting what they were seeing. "They constantly require maintenance," reported a Volridian analyst to Ambassador Krell. "Their champion breaks down daily and requires chemical fuel and extended unconsciousness cycles." Krell's crystalline form shifted colors slightly in what passed for contemplation among his kind. "They're more mechanized than initial reports suggested. Nevertheless, the integration appears crude." Meanwhile, Dr. Chen and her legal team worked through the complex regulations governing the Centennial trials. Every rule had been written with the assumption that competitors would rely on natural evolutionary advantages rather than technological augmentation. "There's our opening," Dr. Chen said, highlighting a passage in the ancient text. "Assistive technologies for species-typical functioning are permitted without restriction." Thomas Okafor raised an eyebrow. "But Soren's enhancements go well beyond typical human capabilities." "That's where their assumptions work against them," Dr. Chen replied with a small smile. "The Confederation defines species-typical functioning based on demonstrated capabilities within the competition. Since they'd never seen humans compete before. We set the baseline with Soren," Thomas finished, understanding dawning on his face. The night before departure, protesters gathered outside the United Nations, their signs illuminated in the evening darkness. "Humanity first, and no to alien blood sporties," and dad pilomasi not kilmpitichin. Dr. Chen had expected opposition, but Soren surprised her by requesting to address the crowd. She watched nervously as he approached the protest line, security personnel flanking him discreetly. "I understand your concerns," Soren called out, his voice carrying across the plaza. "Many of you believe we shouldn't have to prove ourselves, that we deserve respect without competition." The crowd quieted somewhat, listening. "But this isn't about proving we can fight," he continued. "It's about proving we belong among the stars on our own terms. Throughout human history, we've had to demonstrate our worth to those who underestimated us. This is no different, except now, we do it for all of humanity." His words didn't convince everyone, but the dialogue opened created enough goodwill for the departure to proceed without incident the following morning. As Earth's diplomatic vessel launched toward the competition world, intelligence reports from Confederation sources indicated that betting odds across the galaxy placed humans at 10,000 to 1 against surviving even the first event. Dr. Chen found Soren in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the receding Earth. "Second thoughts?" she asked quietly. Soren shook his head. "No, but I am curious. What happens if I actually win this thing?" Dr. Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. "Let's focus on surviving the first round before we worry about that." What she didn't share was the classified assessment from Earth's Strategic Planning Division. A human victory in the trials might trigger more than just diplomatic recognition. It could potentially destabilize the entire Confederation's hierarchy system, a system that had maintained peace among vastly different species for 50,000 years. Sometimes proving your strength came with unexpected consequences. The trials began on Helios 9, a moon with 1.8 times Earth's gravity and an atmosphere rich in sulfur compounds. The competition arena sprawled across a massive crater, transformed into a series of environmental challenges that would test the limits of any species. Soren stood at the starting line among 30 competitors from across the galaxy, his exo-assist suit whining softly as it compensated for the increased gravitational pressure. Next to him, the serpentine Naga competitor coiled casually, its evolved musculature perfectly suited to high-gravity environments. On his other side, a gaseous Vaporeon hovered within its containment field, completely unaffected by gravity altogether. "The human appears functional," observed Admiral Zax Tull from the official's platform. "Surprising." Ambassador Krell's crystalline form refracted the reddish sunlight. "It will not last. The first challenge alone involves crossing terrain that would liquefy their fragile bone structure without their crude technology." The starting signal pulsed across multiple wavelengths, and the competitors launched forward. The serpentine Naga slithered effortlessly across quicksand, while the gaseous Vaporeons simply floated above obstacles. Soren's suit performed admirably, allowing him to maintain a steady middle position as they approached the first major obstacle, a field of geothermal vents erupting superheated steam at random intervals. "Thermal mapping engaged," announced the suit's AI in Soren's ear, calculating vent eruption patterns. Soren moved methodically, trusting the technology while also relying on his Olympic-trained awareness of his body's position in space. He watched the techniques of his alien competitors, noting how the crystalline Volridian ahead of him seemed to anticipate eruptions seconds before they occurred. "They're sensing the pressure changes," he realized. Adaptive sensors recalibrate to detect subsurface pressure differentials. Halfway through the brutal endurance course, disaster struck. As Soren navigated a narrow ridge of unstable rock, the primary power coupling in his suit failed with a shower of sparks. "Warning: primary systems compromised," the AI announced calmly. "Rerouting essential functions." Confederation observers prepared to record human withdrawal. No species had ever completed the course with damaged equipment. But something unexpected happened. Rather than signaling for extraction, Soren dropped to one knee and manually accessed the suit's control systems through a panel on his forearm. "Divert power from upper body assistance to maintain leg function and environmental protection," he commanded. Reduce neural interface to 60% across all remaining systems. The adjustments meant he would feel every punishing step through the high gravity, but it would keep him in the race. The audience watched in stunned silence as Soren continued through what must have been excruciating pain, improvising solutions to each obstacle. When the crystalline Volridian competitor easily overtook him in the thermal canyon, Soren studied its movement patterns and positioned himself directly behind it through the windstorm section, drafting to conserve energy, a racing technique from Earth now applied to interstellar competition. The final stretch involved scaling a 50-meter cliff face in the punishing gravity. With his upper body assistance compromised, Soren had to rely on pure human technique and the remaining functionality in his legs. Each handhold was agony, but he maintained steady progress. "Remarkable adaptation," murmured the luminary observer, its misty form condensing with interest. The equipment failure revealed something unexpected. Soren finished 12th out of 30 competitors, well behind the leaders but far from last place, a result deemed impossible by the Confederation's predictive models. Medical scans afterward revealed microfractures throughout his natural bones, yet he appeared at the evening ceremony standing tall, showing no sign of the pain he must have felt. Ambassador Krell approached during the ceremonial reception, studying Soren with newfound curiosity. "You could have withdrawn without shame when your technology failed. Why continue when victory was impossible?" Soren met the multifaceted gaze of the crystalline being. "Because sometimes finishing is its own victory." The translator devices relayed his response across the gathering. For a moment, silence fell over the alien delegates as they processed this concept. The Confederation's translation matrix struggled with the deeper implications, but something in Soren's tone transcended the linguistic barriers. That evening, the clip of Soren's response spread across galactic networks, becoming the most replayed moment in Confederation media history. The first time many species considered that perhaps strength could be measured by more than mere victory. As subsequent trials tested different capabilities, Soren consistently outperformed projections, climbing to 8th in overall rankings after a particularly strong showing in the reflexive response challenge. His adaptable technology and unconventional approaches drew attention from both admirers and threatened species. The Volridian High Council convened an emergency session, their crystalline forms vibrating with agitation. "This human advancement is unprecedented and unacceptable," declared Elder Crystallis, her multifaceted form shifting through hues of deep purple. "The balance of power that has sustained our position for millennia is at risk." Ambassador Krell inclined his upper section in deference. "The human relies entirely on technology. Without it, he is nothing." "Then perhaps," Elder Crystallis suggested, her tone sharp as fractured quartz, "he should find himself without it." That night, Volridian operatives infiltrated Earth's maintenance bay, methodically sabotaging critical equipment components slated for the underwater challenge. They left no obvious signs, ensuring the damage would only become apparent when Soren was deep beneath the liquid methane ocean of the fourth trial. Dr. Chen discovered the tampering during a routine pre-challenge inspection the following morning. She immediately gathered Earth's small support team. "We have 3 hours before the aquatic trial," she informed them grimly. "The primary propulsion system and environmental regulators are beyond repair." General Wei, observing via secure communication link from Earth, was blunt. "Withdraw from this challenge. We can file a formal complaint and be tied up in Confederation bureaucracy for months," Dr. Chen interrupted. "While they dismiss us as too fragile to handle competition without crying foul." She studied the damaged equipment, her diplomatic mind racing through alternatives. The Confederation's power structure wasn't just about raw strength. It was about relationships, alliances, and leverage. Rather than filing a protest, Dr. Chen approached the Merlani delegation, aquatic beings previously considered inconsequential by the Confederation hierarchy. Their representative, Singer, rippled her translucent fins warily as Dr. Chen explained their situation. "Why approach us?" Singer asked, her voice bubbling through her translator. "We have no standing to influence the Volridians. Because your aquatic propulsion technology is the most advanced in the Confederation," Dr. Chen replied. "And because the Heliot mining rights in your home system are being contested next month in Council." Shoal Singer's fins stilled. "You offer support in that matter." "Earth would consider the Merlani claim most persuasive," Dr. Chen confirmed with a diplomatic smile. 30 minutes before the trial, Soren found himself being fitted with borrowed Merlani propulsion technology, equipment designed for beings with fundamentally different physiologies. "It responds to bioelectric fields rather than neural commands," Dr. Rashid explained hurriedly. "You'll have to essentially relearn movement patterns underwater." Soren nodded, studying the strange configuration. "So I adapt. That's what humans do." When Soren entered the liquid methane ocean alongside the other competitors, Confederation spectators murmured in confusion at his cobbled-together equipment. The crystalline Volridian champion, Facet Prime, flashed a pattern through his form that translated roughly as contemptuous amusement. Yet as the challenge progressed through the deep-pressure environment, something unexpected happened. Soren's borrowed Merlani technology required him to develop entirely new movement techniques on the fly, resulting in unconventional approaches to each obstacle. Where other competitors followed established patterns optimized over generations, Soren improvised, finding efficiencies that emerged from his unique human Merlani technological hybrid. He finished the aquatic challenge in 5th place. "Impossible," Ambassador Krell hissed to his aides. The sabotage was comprehensive. Meanwhile, other lesser species began approaching Earth's delegation with alliance proposals, creating a diplomatic undercurrent that threatened the Confederation's rigid power structure. Dr. Chen found herself conducting more meetings between trials than she had during formal diplomatic sessions. The Volridian ambassador discovered too late that the competition arena wasn't the only battlefield where humans excelled. While Soren gained respect through physical performance, Dr. Chen was quietly reshaping political alliances that had remained static for centuries. "They're playing a game beyond the game," the luminary representative observed to Admiral Zach's Tool as they watched Dr. Chen conclude yet another meeting with a previously marginalized species. One might wonder if the physical trials were merely a distraction from their true strategy. The Admiral's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Perhaps we underestimated these humans in more ways than one." The neural challenge phase began in virtual reality, where competitors faced the legendary Mobius construct, a multidimensional puzzle unsolved for 3 centuries. Each species connected to the ancient system according to their unique neural structures. The crystalline Volridians through resonance nodes, the hive-minded Exarics through collective consciousness interfaces, and Soren through a modified neural link adapted from Earth's medical imaging technology. The Mobius construct exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional states, explained the ancient eye overseeing the challenge. To solve it, one must perceive all quantum possibilities concurrently. Inside the virtual space, competitors found themselves surrounded by geometric structures that shifted and transformed in ways that defied conventional physics. Colors existed in spectrums beyond normal human perception, artificially translated for Soren's benefit. Their neural architecture gives them inherent advantages, Dr. Rashid explained to Dr. Chen as they monitored Soren's vital signs. The Volridians perceive quantum states naturally. The Exarics process information collectively through thousands of minds simultaneously. Dr. Chen watched the holographic representation of the competitors' progress. "And humans? We see patterns," Dr. Rashid said simply. "Where others see chaos, humans have always excelled at finding underlying order." The Drozari representative finished first, using brute computational force to work through all possible configurations. The collective consciousness of the Exaric swarm followed shortly after, their hive mind processing countless permutations in parallel. After 14 hours, only Soren and 4 others remained in the challenge. Confederation observers noted his unusual approach. Rather than attempting to solve the puzzle directly, He experimented with changing his perception of the problem itself, rotating his viewpoint through conceptual space rather than trying to manipulate the constructs directly. "What is he doing?" Ambassador Krell demanded, his crystalline form vibrating with impatience. "The approach is completely unorthodox." The luminary representative drifted closer to the monitoring station. "He appears to be recontextualizing the parameters." When Soren finally emerged successful, the judging AI reported an anomaly. Entity: Human has not solved the Mobius construct through standard resolution procedures. Entity: Human has reframed the dimensional constraints, creating a solution state through perceptual reconfiguration. The Confederation's chief architect, a being of pure mathematical thought, materialized beside the monitoring stations. Clarify this irregularity. Has the human failed the challenge? The ancient AI's response came after an unusually long processing pause. The challenge tests problem-solving capability, not adherence to expected methodologies. The human has identified a valid solution state through unexpected means. This outcome is interesting. The chief architect demanded disqualification, arguing that Soren had circumvented rather than solved the puzzle. But the ancient AI, whose decisions were binding under Confederation law, overruled. Innovation in approach is not grounds for disqualification. The purpose of the trials is to test capabilities, not conform to limitations. The resulting philosophical debate spread across the Confederation, with younger species particularly fascinated by human lateral thinking. The Merlani representative, Scholzinger, publicly declared during a council session, "Perhaps we have emphasized evolutionary optimization at the expense of creative adaptation. The human approach reveals blind spots in our understanding." That night, Soren found representatives from 17 species waiting outside Earth's quarters, seeking insight into human cognitive approaches. The Axeric sent a single drone that transmitted directly to their hive mind. Even a junior Volridian scholar arrived, though he kept his distance from the other species. "How did you perceive the dimensional constraints differently?" asked the Terrakin philosopher, her root-like appendages quivering with excitement. Soren struggled to explain concepts that seemed intuitive to him. "I stopped trying to solve the puzzle as presented, and instead questioned the frame itself. Sometimes the hardest problems can't be solved within the boundaries they're presented." Dr. Chen watched from the doorway as Soren's impromptu masterclass in human thinking stretched into the night. The scoreboard showed him in 6th place overall, a position deemed statistically impossible by Confederation models, but his greater contribution might be the sharing of perspective. "The human cognitive approach is fundamentally different," the luminary observer noted, drifting beside Dr. Chen. "You do not merely adapt to environments, you reimagine them." Dr. Chen smiled diplomatically. "That's how we survived on Earth. When you can't outrun the predator or overpower it, you change the game entirely." As the final challenge approached, the Confederation observers began to recognize that human weakness might simply be a different kind of strength, one their metrics had never been designed to measure. The final challenge took place on a massive terraform arena that shifted environments every 20 minutes, from scorching desert to Arctic tundra to acidic swampland. Each competitor would navigate the terrain while engaging in tactical combat with automated security systems and eventually each other, using non-lethal suppression technology to simulate battlefield conditions. "This is the true measure of a species' capability," Admiral Zach's tool announced to the assembled spectators. "Not merely strength or intelligence, but the ability to prevail in changing conditions against active opposition." Soren stood at the entry point, his newly repaired exo-assist suit incorporating elements from several Confederation technologies, gifts from newfound allies. Dr. Rashid made final calibrations while Dr. Chen briefed him on the challenge parameters. "The Volridians and Drozeri typically dominate this event," she explained. "Their natural weapons and armor give them significant advantages in direct confrontation." Soren nodded, watching the arena transform from its neutral state into a desert landscape. "And the others?" The luminary simply phase through solid obstacles. The Terrakin manipulate the environments themselves. Each species relies on evolutionary advantages we can't match. Dr. Chen hesitated. The betting pools have you finishing no higher than 5th, even with your current ranking. 5th would be remarkable for a first-time competitor, Dr. Rashid added encouragingly. Soren watched the other competitors preparing, studying their equipment and movements. What does the winner receive? We've never actually discussed that. Dr. Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. Their species receives priority resource rights in disputed territories for the next century, and they personally join the High Council until the next trials. The starting signal pulsed, and 30 competitors entered the arena simultaneously from different points. The Volridians and Drozeri immediately dominated early phases with their natural weapons, neutralizing automated defenses with ease. The ethereal luminary simply phased through solid obstacles, while the gelatinous morphins flowed around hazards. Instead of charging forward, Soren took a position on a high outcropping, using enhanced optical systems to observe the others. He watched each species approach, identifying subtle patterns in their evolutionarily ingrained behaviors. He's not even moving, Ambassador Krell noted with disdain. The human fears direct engagement. When the environment shifted to Arctic tundra after 20 minutes, Soren finally moved, but not toward the central checkpoint where most competitors had gathered. Instead, he began tunneling into the snow, creating a hidden network of passages beneath the surface. The Confederation audience watched in confusion as his position indicators seemed to malfunction, disappearing and reappearing across the terrain. When the Volridian champion confidently strode across what seemed to be stable ice, the surface collapsed, a trap meticulously engineered using principles of thermal transfer that Soren had calculated based on the Volridian's crystalline density. As the champion fell into the frigid water below, Soren emerged from his tunnel network to tag him with the suppression field, earning points and temporarily removing his most dangerous opponent from competition. He studied the Volridian's molecular structure, the luminary observer realized. The ice was precisely calibrated to support any other competitor but fail under that specific crystalline pattern. As environments shifted again, Soren employed different strategies against each opponent: psychological misdirection against the hive-minded Exorix, environmental adaptation against the environment-controlling Terrakin. Rather than engaging with brute force, he manipulated the context of each confrontation. When facing a Drozari warrior in the swampland phase, Soren didn't attempt to match its chitinous armor and powerful limbs. Instead, he lured it into a region he had seeded with sonic emitters tuned to the resonant frequency of Drozari exoskeletons, information gleaned from his earlier observation post. The Confederation's military observers watched with growing concern as this supposedly primitive species demonstrated warfare principles that transcended physical capability. They don't fight with strength, noted Admiral Zach's tool, mandibles clicking with unease. They fight with information, psychology, and strategic foresight. The luminary representative's misty form condensed slightly. Perhaps that is why they survived on a world where they were neither the strongest nor the fastest. They learned to prevail through means beyond physical dominance. When the final scores were calculated, Soren stood in 4th place overall, unprecedented for a newly discovered species. Though he hadn't won, he had outperformed multiple species with millennia of interstellar history. As he exited the arena, exhausted but standing tall, Ambassador Krell approached. The crystalline being's usual vibration of superiority was notably absent. Your performance was unexpected, the Volridian admitted. Soren removed his helmet, revealing a tired smile. That's humanity's specialty, Ambassador. Across the viewing platforms, representatives from dozens of species watched the exchange, their perception of the galactic hierarchy subtly but irrevocably altered. The battle was over, but its impact was just beginning to spread through the stars. The Confederation Council convened an emergency session to address humanity's performance. The traditional victory ceremony, usually a predictable affair confirming the existing power structure, was overshadowed by intense debate about Earth's classification status. Dr. Chen stood in the center of the vast chamber, Soren beside her still wearing his medical monitoring bands. The physical toll of the trials showed in his posture, but he maintained the straight-backed dignity of an Olympic athlete on the podium. "The Council recognizes the representative of Earth," announced the luminary eldest, its misty form presiding over the proceedings. "Your species has earned the right to address this body." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "Humanity thanks the Confederation for the opportunity to participate in the Centennial Trials. We came not seeking dominance, but recognition, not as protected subsidiaries, but as equals with unique contributions to offer galactic civilization." Ambassador Krell rose from his position among the Volridian delegation. His crystalline form had shifted to a formal configuration, the angles and facets oriented in what Dr. Chen had learned was a posture of respect. "The Council has reviewed humanity's performance," he stated, his usual condescension noticeably absent. "We have fundamentally misunderstood what constitutes evolutionary advancement. These humans lack almost every physical advantage we consider essential, yet they have thrived through means we never considered." Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the Volridian continued. "Their adaptability, their technological integration, their strategic thinking, these are not weaknesses or compensations, but different expressions of species development. Their fourth-place standing represents the most significant performance by a new species in Confederation history." Admiral Zach Stull's mandibles clicked in the Drozari equivalent of a formal acknowledgement. "The military implications of human cognitive approaches deserve further study. Their tactical innovations during the final challenge revealed blind spots in our own strategic doctrine." One by one, representatives from major species rose to offer their assessments of humanity's demonstration. Not all were positive. The Exarix hive mind expressed concerns about human unpredictability, while the Terrakin worried about their resource consumption patterns. But even the criticisms acknowledged humanity as worthy of serious consideration. Dr. Chen seized the moment to negotiate Earth's entry as a full Confederation member, leveraging the network of alliances formed with previously marginalized species during the trials. "Humanity proposes a joint development initiative with the Merlani, Terrakin, and Luminary," she announced. "Our combined approaches to adaptive technology and environmental integration could benefit countless worlds across the Confederation." The proposal sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. Such cross-species collaboration outside the dominant hierarchies was rare, threatening to reshape power dynamics that had remained stable for millennia. After 3 days of intense negotiation, the Council reached its decision. Earth would be granted full membership status, not as a protected subsidiary, but as a sovereign civilization with all attendant rights and responsibilities. As humans prepared to return to Earth, Soren found himself approached by the Volridian champion, who had defeated him in several events. "Your bones broke and healed 17 times during the trials," the crystalline being observed, its voice rendered in perfect translation. "My form would have shattered permanently under such stress." Soren smiled. "The difference is that we expect to break sometimes. Breaking isn't failure. It's how we learn our limits and then surpass them." The Volridian's form shifted slightly, processing this concept. "My species has avoided situations that might cause structural damage for 100,000 years. Perhaps this has limited us in ways we did not recognize." 6 months later, the first Confederation Academy opened on Earth, with representatives from 34 species arriving to study human ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience. The teaching staff included not only Earth's finest minds, but also experts from Merlani aquatic engineers to luminary quantum theorists, the beginning of true collaborative innovation. In the new Confederation classification system, Earth received a unique designation: Adaptive Innovators, the first new category added in 10,000 years. The term soon spread to describe not just humans, but a philosophical approach to civilization that valued adaptation and creativity alongside evolutionary specialization. As Dr. Chen watched new human ships launch toward the stars, she recalled Ambassador Krell's first dismissive words about humanity's soft bodies and brittle bones. On her desk sat a crystalline sculpture, a gift from the Volridian delegation, inscribed with words from an Earth philosopher. It is not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those most responsive to change. General Wade joined her at the viewport. They never expected us to win through strength, he noted. No, Dr. Chen agreed. But humanity had never needed to be the strongest. We simply needed the opportunity to show that strength takes many forms. In the decades that followed, humanity spread throughout the Confederation, not as conquerors or subjects, but as connectors, building bridges between species through their unique ability to adapt, innovate, and see potential where others saw only limitations. The species that had once dismissed humans as weak had finally witnessed their true battle, not against each other, but against the limits of what seemed possible.